with the game on the line.
Don't jump off sides first.
That is during overtime of Super Bowl 58, a game that needed an extra 15 minutes to determine who the champion of football was going to be for this year. And the damn thing sounds like it's being played in a medium-sized restaurant during a slightly busy lunch rush.
From 27 yards, he makes it.
If you listen closely enough, you can probably even hear some glasses clinking, silverware hitting a plate, and maybe even some dude in catering in the back yelling that they're 86ing grilled onions. Every now and then, the noise level would pick up to something resembling a sporting event. That doesn't change the fact, though. That doesn't change the hard, cold truth. The Super Bowl was absolutely dead, at least in terms of the crowd.
Launches end zone, incomplete.
That was smart. See how quick he got rid of it?
I mean, even by Super Bowl standards, this was eerily quiet. We know this isn't an Allegiant Stadium issue, by the way, because we've seen plenty of away fans travel to Las Vegas, pack the thing, and make a ruckus. Heyo! Jokes aside, though, it's time to ask a very serious question. Does the Super Bowl have an atmosphere problem? Look, I'm not going to pretend that the Super Bowl is anything other than a corporate sell-out-a-thon where a bunch of randos from across the country descend upon a select city to watch a game they really don't have a vested interest in. These folks aren't going because they care about the outcome. They're going to say that they went to the Super Bowl. And if we're being honest, most years they probably outnumber real fans 4 or 5 to 1. This year, though, Super Bowl 58, it seems like this was totally out of whack. Again, even for the Super Bowl, it must have been 20 to 1 randos to fans. I am also keenly aware the Super Bowl isn't really an NFL game. It is an entertainment spectacle, a juggernaut of pop culture where a football game happens to be going on in the background. So be it in that regard. I have come to accept that this is just the trade-off to watching the NFL any given year. The thing is, though, you still need the game to feel like an actual game because people watching are football fans. There's still football fans involved in the process, and you should, at least in some aspects, be catering to them. And what they want is a competitive game played in a football environment. That isn't what we're getting at this moment in time. Instead, the Super Bowl, the game to determine the sport's one champion, the best of the best, often feels like it's being played in an atmosphere that would rival preseason games in some cities. That's not a good look, by the way. That's something that should never, ever happen. Beyond that, it's simply counterintuitive to what the NFL should be doing during the Super Bowl. That is, building new fans, getting people who may not watch football at other points in the season to tune in next year. The best way to do that, by the way, is to put out the best product. The product on the field isn't the issue. We know that when it comes to football, the atmosphere can add to the overall package of it. When you hear the crowd noise, when you hear the roar of the crowd, it makes things so much better, more enjoyable. Even neutrals understand that. The NFL can still have all of the commercials, all of the entertainment aspects. Look, if it wants to cut away to celebrities in the crowd, so be it. I don't even have an issue with that, at least during the Super Bowl. What I do have an issue with, though, is playing this big game, this huge occasion, in such a muted atmosphere. You can have pomp and circumstance coming out the yin-yang, but we also know that fans and the crowds and those watching are an integral part of the NFL experience. We learned firsthand during the pandemic that ain't no one got time for games played without a crowd, without the crowd noise, without that sort of backing. It's part of the soundtrack of football. Astonishingly, it felt as if some of those games with piped-in crowd noises played in front of cardboard cutout fans had a better atmosphere than the sterile environment on offer during Super Bowl 58. The game was a sellout. There were people in the stands, but what were they doing? Because they didn't seem to be all of that engaged or in tune to the game itself, to what was happening on the field. It wasn't just the game itself, though, that had this issue. Even the Super Bowl halftime show with Usher felt flat, and that should never, ever happen. An Usher performance, even an Usher song coming on in a stadium, should never feel flat. I'll never forget when I went to a Golden State Warriors game in 2003 and the loudest pop of the night from the crowd didn't come from on the court. It came when the song Yeah was played. The crowd just got on their feet. It was loud. It was, again, just the biggest roar from the crowd came when an Usher song was playing. Yet at the Super Bowl, with a far bigger crowd than the 10,000 or so people in the arena on that night in 2003, made far less noise for Usher. To me, this indicates a huge problem in that everyone paying exorbitant amounts to see the Super Bowl don't actually care what's happening at the Super Bowl. I mean, what are we even doing here then? Here's the thing. I'm not asking for the NFL championship game to be played at a home site. I don't even need it to feel necessarily like one team is at home. That's just an atmosphere you cannot recreate. And I understand that the National Football League wants the spectacle. They want the pomp and circumstance. You don't have to do away with that. But would it really harm the NFL to have actual fans in the stands? I mean, even if it's not fans of the two teams playing or one of the two teams playing, just fans of the sport in general who will cheer when there should be cheering, who will jeer when there should be jeering. Is that a difficult thing to do? Would that really be just a horrible thing to have for the sport? I know some out there will point the blame at, well, this is a neutral site game. This is just what you're going to get when you play a football game at a neutral site. But I know firsthand that isn't the case. I was at the 2019 Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State and Clemson played in Arizona, a place with absolutely zero connections to either school. The fans needed to make a trek there. Now, look, the tickets to the Fiesta Bowl were like a fifth of what the Super Bowl goes for. However, the reward was just a great atmosphere. It felt like even though there wasn't a dominant voice in the stadium, you could feel the passion. You could feel the fact that people actually cared about the football game. Just because there isn't a home team and away team doesn't mean the environment, the atmosphere has to suffer. To that end, though, I want to bring up a gripe I have, and that is people who go to sporting events and don't root for either side. I've gone to games across the country, and a lot of the times I have absolutely no dog in the fight. And you know what? I still pick a team I am going to root for, because that, again, is just part of your duty as a fan, to not sit there on your hands talking about the team you support. Root for one of the freaking teams or don't go. I mean, when I was at the 2019 Fiesta Bowl, I hate Ohio State, and I am at best indifferent towards Clemson. Like, I could have taken or leaving them as far as the college football playoff was concerned. But when I went to the Fiesta Bowl, I still rooted for Clemson, because that is just part of your responsibility as a fan to contribute to that atmosphere. Now, I'm not saying you need to paint your face up and become like super fan numero uno or anything like that, but simple clapping, simple acknowledgement of good plays and bad plays is your duty, is what you are obligated to do when you buy a ticket to any sporting event. Let's not get sidetracked too much on that. What's the fix here? What's the solution? Bigger venues do not really exist in the United States. We've stopped building 80,000, 90,000, 100,000 seat stadiums that are capable of hosting an event like the Super Bowl. AT&T Stadium tried to expand their capacity for the Super Bowl back in the day, and the more than 100,000 people they tried to cram inside that stadium, it just went really poorly. A disaster talked about to this day. The real solution here is getting more fans of football in the stadium. Stop gouging people on tickets. Stop letting resellers dominate the market, making this an event to celebrate football for those who care about the sport. Yet I also know that's just not going to happen. In fact, Roger Goodell and the NFL probably think playing its biggest game of the year in a golf-like atmosphere is a good thing, but it's not, and it shouldn't be considered as such. At the end of the day, there can be no denying the Super Bowl has an atmosphere problem. The game just doesn't feel as important or as big as it should. It's not going to derail anything because the Super Bowl has become this unstoppable juggernaut of an entertainment pop culture phenomenon, whatever you want to bill it as. But we also know everything in life tends to be cyclical. And one day the NFL will start to see a decline in ratings, or they just can't keep one up. Like, no one can continue to one up itself in perpetuity. So eventually, the NFL is going to face a problem when it comes to the Super Bowl. Then, of course, is when Roger Goodell and the owners will come crawling back to the average Joe, the regular guy, to come attend the Super Bowl. And there's no doubt they will probably do it. It is the Super Bowl after all. It's one of the things that just about every red-blooded football fan dreams of. Ultimately, though, it shouldn't be on those loyal fans to keep the sport afloat. They should be involved today, yesterday, tomorrow, whenever. That is who the NFL shouldn't forget in all of this. Instead of simply pimping out tickets to pharmaceutical salesmen and whoever the hell is actually at the Super Bowl who can afford to go to this thing, maybe keep in mind those who brought you to the dance, those just salt of the earth NFL fans from coast to coast who have followed the sport through thick and thin. And under Roger Goodell, there's been a lot more thick than thin. Maybe ticket sales, maybe ticket revenue isn't as big, but it will more than pay for itself in creating a Super Bowl environment worth watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you would like to know a little bit more about other topics NFL related, well, you can check out the playlist right there, bottom right of the screen, or maybe learn a little bit more about the fumble out of the end zone rule, which I still contest is a great rule. That's upper right hand corner. Until next time, I'm Cheyenne Hollis. This is the Touchback, and as always, hashtag take it out to the 25.